All right, everybody, it's time for another Mock Draft Monday here on the program. But first, we'll talk about the latest Jets draft news and nuggets as well. Make sure you guys get involved wherever you're watching. We're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Let's get this party started right here on a Monday.
Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Hey, what's poppin', everybody? Paul Weston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, also available wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to check those out as well. Also, in the second half of the show, we'll be diving into the mailbag. If you go into the YouTube community channel, you guys can submit questions throughout the week. I'll be putting up this week's for next Monday up, but our one for this past Monday, which is today, Monday, that mailbag has already been out and people have submitted questions and we've put them on the ticker here. We'll be getting Dom C's insights on those a little bit later in the show. So if you want to get involved, that is the way to do so. Again, draft prospects, Jets draft scenarios, mock drafts, anything you'd like. And you'll see an example of those in a little bit. Without further ado, every Monday, my partner in crime every Monday is Dom C of Project Prospect. Let's bring him in. Good morning, Dom.
Paul, good morning. How are you today, man?
I'm doing great. Again,
Good.
you get the best hair in the game. Obviously, I don't. I've been hiding it behind a hat for the last 25 plus years. So I'm doing what I can, brother.
Yeah. Best hair in the game. Listen, if there's any compliment is a good compliment. My mom always told me so.
Wow.
I will take it, sir. I will take it.
Especially in your line of work, I imagine, because draft people, I imagine people throw stones at you on social
Well,
media
look,
and your YouTube channel and whatnot.
There's a lot of dare I say, handsome devils out there in the draft media. I mean, Trevor Sycamore, Connor Rogers, all these guys. So I'm just trying to keep up with the Joneses here, Paul.
Yeah, there you go. I respect it. Also, a shout out to a new YouTube member. Appreciate you joining the Boy Green Superfan Club, baby. Nick N.
Hey, Nick.
Hey,
good job, buddy.
Appreciate that. God bless America. Appreciate you, pal. So let's dive into this. And this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Ulbrich is named the national head coach for the Senior Bowl. And I love this program. If you guys don't know about it, it's the Coach Up program where this is the second season that it's happening there for the Senior Bowl. And it's basically giving guys opportunities to coach beyond what they are. In this case, Jeff Ulbrich's a defense coordinator. He has aspirations to be a head coach, and he had to be nominated by Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas to even be considered for this position. He beat out a lot of people for it. So really excited for Ulbrich to get this out because he hasn't had any head coaching interviews that have been made public. So this is a good op for him. You'll be down there at the Senior Bowl, Dom C. I think what a lot of Jet fans are curious about is there advantages here that could be taking place for this program because the Jets a couple years ago, of course, had their full Monty, the full coaching staff, kind of take advantage of it. Are there advantages to being the head coach of one of the teams down at the Senior Bowl in your mind for the Jets?
Well, yeah, I think, and not only for the Jets, for any team that has a representative there. I mean, there's just going to be advantage. You can scout all you want. You can watch as much tape on the guy as you can. You can get as much background intel as you can. You can talk to his, college coaches, his college positional coaches, his high school coaches, his, freshman homeroom, staff advisor. You can talk to whomever you'd like. But there's nothing that's going to give you more of a sense of a player than what he's doing on the field right then, right there. You see him mano a mano, matched up against or with your own eyes. You can see him execute what you're asking him to execute. So I think for anybody that has a coach there, there's always some sort of advantage. Now, realistically, I would probably say, and this is not a negative. I mean, being there and being the head coach for Jeff Ulbrich is wonderful, but you probably even have that much more advantage if you're a positional coach, right? Like the guy, Callie Brownson, the wide receiver coach for the national team, who's the Browns. I don't know what his real title for the Browns is. He's going to be the wide receivers coach, right? He's going to have an up close and personal, even deeper relationship with these guys that he's, coaching up during the practice in the positional practices. Jeff Ulbrich gets a chance to really play CEO. Now he's going to, the benefit to that is he's going to get eyes on both offense and defense and special teams and every positional group as he rotates around through. So yes, long story short, there's absolutely an advantage of seeing these guys with your eyes.
Hey, let me throw this up on the screen. Shout out to NYJ Matt. The Jets staff that led the 2022 Senior Bowl practices drafted 4 players who attended: Jermaine Johnson, Jeremy Rucker, Max Mitchell, Michael Clemens. That was a first-round draft choice. They traded back up in the first round for Jermaine Johnson. Jeremy Rucker was a top of the third-round selection, and Max Mitchell and Michael Clemens were like 12 or 15 picks apart in the fourth round. So, they dove into that pool after learning some intel. So.
Absolutely. And the Rams staff was heavily, involved last year. I think they had 2 different positional coaches one on each separate team. And the class that I think they had the most Senior Bowl draftees, if you will, from last class. I mean, and look at that rookie class, what they did, Kobe Bryant and the Muck. So
yeah, unbelievable. So I'm sure the Jets are hoping for similar results, especially from an immediacy standpoint. This is a win now team. This is a win now mode, and the pressure is on everybody because if they do not deliver, it's a results oriented business. Heads are going to roll, so they need to find guys that can make those impact. So we will answer Jets draft questions, and those can have anything to do with anything. So, for instance, today I really want to hone in on some of the first round wide receiver options for the Jets, but your draft questions and the questions that were submitted are all over the place, so they can be whatever, and that's fine. So we'll be doing that in a little bit. But let's get into that because a lot of people, and I think that's a good way to start these shows for the first couple here, Dom C, is the obvious. And it seems like on the surface that the Jets will go either offensive lineman or wide receiver with that 10th overall pick, barring, of course, something crazy and something that you don't expect, which happens every year, which makes it fun, the unpredictability nature of that. But with that being said, give fans a taste. If wide receiver is one of the realistic positions the Jets could attack with the 10th overall pick, who could still be available at 10 realistically if the Jets were going to dive in the wide receiver waters?
Realistically, I mean, listen, we all know that everyone knows the name Marvin Harrison Jr., the pedigree, the player there. I mean, if we're speaking realistically, that's not a realistic option. I think that the absolute floor for Marvin Harrison is pick number 4. I don't see the Jets with limited capital and many different holes to fill. Again, we don't know what happens in free agency, but
of course,
I don't see them trading up in this, in this first round from 10 up, because that's when, I mean, when you start trading up into the top 10, that's when, the price starts getting heavy. So they just don't have the capital this year. I don't see them trading up. So,
but would it be worth it in your mind?
Would it be worth it? I mean, absolutely. I think Marvin Harrison's a special player.
Yeah.
Just everything. I mean, there's just pretty much he's the best player on the field. Every time, just about every time he steps on, I mean, big, strong, fast, probably one of the best route runners in this class. He's fast, but he's a different kind of fast. He's like a smooth fast. You know what I mean? Like he'll look like he's running, a 4.7, 4.8 40, and when he gets clocked, he'll be at 4.39 to 4.44, something like that. Like very, 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 very smooth runner, silky, sets his, sinks his hips, knows how to sell his routes and his head fakes and his shoulder fakes and all that stuff, all that little stuff to get off press coverage, the, stutter steps and the fake steps. Like I said, big, tall, long arms, big, wide catch radius, strong hands. There's really not much that he doesn't do well. I mean, I think he had like a 3.9% drop rate all through college.
Wow.
Yeah. dominant in single coverage. When you try to man him up one-on-one, 878 yards and 14 touchdowns. That was in 2022. Just alone. I mean, let's listen. Ohio State puts out good receivers, and Marvin Harrison might be the best one that's come out in a while.
Wow. Okay. Let me just add this in because you mentioned that, when you start trading up in that kind of territory, it can be costly. The first one that came to my head was a few. There was the 2014 NFL draft. The Buffalo Bills had the 9th overall pick. The Cleveland Browns had the 4th overall pick, and the Jets decided the Bills decided to trade up in that draft. They had to pick swap, obviously, so 4 to 9. Plus, they had to give their 1st and 4th round selections in the following year's draft. That's a high price to pay. And one, I'm not sure what the Jets would be willing to do. And obviously, the also important factor in this is that free agency comes before the draft, so we should have a few of these answers. Shout out to Rich Meany, though, in his Sunday morning column. He said the Jets will be making, quote unquote, a significant addition to the wide receiver room, whether that comes from trade, free agency, or the draft. So we'll see.
Yeah. Listen, if the Jets were one player away, I could really kind of make or justify trading up to secure that one player, even if it costs a little future capital, so on and so forth. But, I don't think the Jets, I mean, I don't know how you feel, Paul. I don't think the Jets are one player away. I think there's holes to fill on the offensive side of the ball, whether it be, 2 or 3 on the offensive line, 1 or 2 more playmakers. You still need a couple a defensive tackle or 2. You need, maybe a starting safety. There's still a lot of juggling around going on here. So to me, the trade up just doesn't make sense.
So what is realistic then at 10?
Realistic, I think at 10 is a name everyone's familiar with. And honestly, at this point, I'm expecting him to keep climbing. So he might even be gone before then. But the most realistic wide receiver for the Jets to be there at 10 is Rome Odunze. Now, Rome is a, very, very good player. 6'3", probably around 210, 215 pounds. He, to me, is a true X build receiver. You know what I mean? Like he's your outside guy. I think he's more of a possession guy, but he's more than just what you and I picture as quote unquote possessional wide receivers. Like he's explosive off the line. He gets, he again, like Marvin Harrison, he's not the fastest, like straight line, quick speed. Like it wouldn't surprise me if he runs closer to 4.5 than he does to 4.3. Okay. But, he's very, very smooth. Again, nuanced route runner, not prolific. They asked him to do a lot, but they didn't ask him to do everything in Washington, But what I do like about Rome Odunze is he can win at all 3 levels, right? We talked about catch radius and sure catching ability. There's probably no one with stronger hands and a bigger, more reliable catch radius in this draft class than Rome Odunze. Like I said, he can get by people. He forces some tackles. He's got some, run after the catch ability. But he doesn't do it at the levels of like, I don't know, think of, Deebo Samuel or all the best yak guys in the league. Like he's not at that level. To me, I think he's, a very, very good high-end wide receiver number 2 on an offense. There's definitely there's definitely some there's going to be guys that are faster. There's going to be guys that can get in and out of their cuts better. There's going to be guys who are more nuanced route runners. There's going to be, I don't know if there's. I was going to say there's going to be guys with better hands, but actually, I don't know that's the case. I mean, he's at the top, at the top of the thing. There's going to be guys that are better blockers. He puts forth the effort, but for a guy who's 6'3", 215, sometimes you just, you're like, maybe old Braxton Berrios could have done better. But so, I personally think that Rome Odunze is the 3rd best wide receiver in this class. I think.
Behind what, Harrison and Neighbors?
Behind Harrison and Neighbors, yeah.
Okay.
And I think, and this is, I just told you, I think Marvin Harrison's probably the best player in this draft.
Yes.
Not probably, most likely. I think the gap between Harrison and Neighbors is a lot closer than the gap between Neighbors and Odunze. So
Fascinating.
yeah, to me, I have a first round grade on Roma Odunze, but I don't, he's not he's not the perfect prospect. He's B pluses. Let's talk about this in the school grades.
Okay.
I
I
think
can
he's
understand that.
B
Yeah.
B pluses all the way across the board, which is fine. Which is very good. And if he's the guy that the Jets hone in on, I'd be completely content with a guy like that. Like I said, he does everything very well. There's nothing out. There's nothing that just makes that to me makes him stand out better than anyone in the class. Does everything well though. He can track the ball. He can run. He can win in the middle on the short routes. He's a contested catch. A contested catch rate. He actually in 2023 he had almost a 75% contested catch rate, which is absolutely bonkers.
Wow.
With like I said, with the less than a 3% drop rate. So he's your true X bill, your true quality, wide receiver too. He's your he's Cincinnati's T. Higgins to oh my God,
Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to provide those kind of answers for you.
Those old man brain farts that I get. I got you.
We're here on a mock draft Monday, but let's go to your point, Domsey. Let's play out the scenario. A lot of people would say and have said, Randy Mueller, a former NFL GM, joined us a week or two ago and said that exact thing. The Jets are not a piece away. You said that as well. A lot of people, I think, would be drinking that Kool-Aid. And if that's the case, people, instead of advocating for a trade up, would advocate for a trade back, especially since at a minute. So the Jets have 6 total picks in this draft. They're missing their second round pick. The gap between their first round selection and their third round selection, we're talking about 10th overall to 72 overall, according to the old NFL draft value chart. But obviously the games have to play, and they're going to reorganize the deck and have all that finalized. But there's a massive gap there. So one way that could help that is by trading back. If the Jets trade back, could they still get one of those wide receivers? Because I've heard the depth of the class at wide receiver and offensive line is tantalizing, according to some people. And since you concur with that, who would be wide receiver options available in a potential trade back scenario? Drop 5, 6, 7, 10 spots, say, and add some more capital, some more lottery tickets to potentially take in this draft.
Listen, I have, as of right now, and this isn't finalized, but right now I have 23 players with at least a third round grade. So we're talking day 1 or day 2. I have 23 wide receivers with at least a day 1 or day 2 grade. So this is a very, very deep class to your point. But let's talk about those scenarios at maybe the middle to the end of the first round guys. All right.
Okay.
There's some names here that are really good, and everyone in the chat, whether they watched or whether they studied film, whether they watched highlights, whether they've read whether they watched the NFL Stock Exchange with Rogers and Sycamore, and they're going to kind of hear some of these names like Xavier Leggett, a big bruising physical monster at 6'3", 227 pounds. He's a guy from South Carolina who will also be at the Senior Bowl. Unfortunately, on the American side, he's a guy that can be there in that late first. I think he'll be in there late first, early second round. I don't necessarily have a first round grade on him, but doesn't mean that he won't be a first round selection. He's a really, really unique talent. Think Treylon Burks. Think AJ Brown on steroids, right?
Wow.
That's what you get.
That's
what you get out of Xavier Leggett. He is just an athlete that this draft class hasn't seen. We always talked about God rest the soul of Denzel Mims as a Jet, but what was the big calling card for Denzel Mims, Paul? It was height, weight, speed combination, right?
Yeah, vertical presence, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what Xavier Leggett does to the nth degree. Now, listen, I don't know if he'll have the straight line speed, the 4.3 straight line speed that like a Denzel Mims had, but I mean, the guy is just explosive, right? He just comes in and out of his breaks explosive. He has he has this just suddenness in him that a man that large shouldn't have, right? And he's improved every year at South Carolina as he's gone. He was the focal point this year. He's got enough flexibility where he can work inside or outside. He's going to be a yards after the catch machine. To me, I think that like he is something that this draft class really, like I said, really, really hasn't seen. He has, the one thing I don't really care for, and not that I care for, but by the time we get drafted, he's going to be 23. So it's a little bit older. I think it was what's going to drop him down a little bit.
So you're in the younger prospects.
Well, I mean, I think at pick number 10, I think that plays a part, Okay. It doesn't really seem to for Joe Douglas, because he has no problem drafting a 24-year-old Jermaine Johnson, a 24-year-old Will McDonald, a 26-year-old, 25, going to be 26-year-old Michael Clemens. So maybe that doesn't play, but to me, I mean, you want to get the most out of these guys. And the thing with Xavier Leggett being 23, he really only had one breakout season. He got better as the years gone on, but he's a full, it took him a full time. He didn't break out until he was 23. Now, there's something to be said statistically and analytically about guys who only have one good year of college statistics at his age, that we might be looking at his ceiling, so he's not a guy I would take at 10, but he's definitely a talent that you want to consider late in that first, early in that second round. Just large, big catch radius. Was made Spencer Rattler what he is, right? And again, he's a guy that's going to be very, very difficult to get down. I'll give you one more name of a guy a guy that I really like. Now, this might be a little bit later in the draft, maybe second to third round, late second to third round. But just say we take an offensive tackle in round one, and we just sit pretty and we pick again at 70 or 71. And this is a guy that we are going to see that Coach Ulbricht's going to have firsthand knowledge of, and that's Jacob Cowan, the Arizona wide receiver, 5'11", 180 pounds. Again, a guy that's 23 years old, a little bit older, team captain. And we know how much Joe Douglas holds that in high regard. He was a transfer from UTEP where he stood out, and he was all conference USA over there. This is a guy that just he kind of reminds me the way he moves of I'm not comparing the player as a whole, but just the suddenness that he moves in and out with very, very much reminds me of Braxton Berrios. Very much reminds me of Tank Dell, the rookie phenom from the Houston Texans last year. He's got that kind of suddenness. He's a twitchy athlete. He's going to be a guy that tests out phenomenal. At 5'11", 180 pounds, he makes guys miss. You know what I mean? He's, probably going to be a slot only guy. But he's not what we consider what we have in our minds as kind of slot. He's not Braxton Berrios. He's not Xavier Gibson. He can win vertically. He's small, but he still goes up at the ball, at the catch point and fights for him. Like he's they talk about guys that play with that dog in them. This is, this is him. Some of the highlight catches on this guy that, you see through his tape, whether it was at UTEP or whether it was, at Arizona, is just absolutely ridiculous. Like I said, will he need to bulk up? Yes. But this is a guy that I think can really press vertically, can really help the offense press vertically. And for a guy 5'11" and whatnot, he's still a red zone weapon. He just knows how to get open. He just understands the game of football. Very, very smart, high IQ player, settles and finds the holes in the zone. This is a guy that and catches anything that's thrown to him. This is one of my. This is I'm going to give you exclusive here, Paul.
Ooh,
this is one of Dom C's true 2024 draft cycle man crushes. And that's Jacob Cowan at Arizona. I cannot wait to get my eyes and watch my eyes feast on this guy in the Senior Bowl and see what he does with the quarterbacks like Penix and Bo Nix and Sam Hartman throwing to him.
Wow.
You know?
That feeds in because we're going to wrap it up with draft questions that people
Shoot.
submitted in the mailbag. And I'll let you guys know I just posted the one for next week. If you'd like to submit questions for next week, you guys can now do so. That is on the forum page. We'll also put that up on the YouTube community channel after. So when you see these questions on the board, you want to be one of these people where Dom C's answering your questions. I'm going to go in the one where basically you just said Tatiana chimes in. Hey,
Ah,
Dom C. As everyone goes through the draft process, they find quote unquote their guys,
yeah.
players that if they were in an NFL draft war room, they would bang the table for.
Mhm.
Who is that for you?
So
So yeah,
I already answered in my wide receiver one, Jacob Cowan. There's a couple other guys that I like. One name I'll give you that everyone's kind of familiar with.
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of Alabama offensive tackle J.C. Latham.
Ooh, he seems
Yeah,
polarizing. A lot of people seem to hate him on Jets Twitter. That I saw they were kind of
yeah.
overreacting, I think, to that play in the college football
That's
playoff.
exactly. A lot of people do single game scouting, right? They watch one game or one play or something like that and form a decision of that. And I don't, listen, the entire body of work is just really, really good. Listen, this guy he's a big man. We know what it's like to have tackles who are 6'6", 360 pounds and so on and so forth.
That might scare people.
Yeah, it's going to scare people. But Paul, when I tell you that, he's probably as dominant. Actually, there's him and Fuaga they're probably two of the most dominant run blocking offensive linemen that I've ever scouted, and I mean that
Wow.
wholeheartedly. And
Wow.
that I've ever.
And how long have you
scouted.
been doing this, Tom? So you give that to people.
In all honesty, probably about 5. This is year 5 of my draft cycle. I mean, I've been doing it since I was a kid, but I've been,
I understand.
I've studied and been more nuanced and educated myself through the right avenues, through the scouting academy and everything. I'm probably going about 5 years about doing this regularly.
And
as
real
a
quick,
whole.
by the way, just to interrupt that, it is in our YouTube description. If you'd like to, subscribe to Dom C's channel, Project Prospect, you guys could do so. The direct link is in our YouTube description, and it will be in every YouTube description for all these mock draft Mondays moving forward to make it real easy to jump right on over and show your support. If you want more of this, me and Dom just
Yeah.
do this once a week every Monday. If you'd
Yeah.
like it more regularly, you can feel free to do so. Sorry about that, Dom.
That's okay. Listen, you can stop at any time to say that stuff. but yeah, J.C. Latham, like I said, he's as dominant of a run blocker, and he's got strength that is just unprecedented. Like when he down blocks, Paul,
Mhm.
when he's at tackle and there's a guy lined up in 3 tech or in 4 eye or something like that, and he comes down, he just bulldozes people out of the way. I think his footwork is clean in pass protection. He has a tendency to, listen, the knock against him, the knocks against him, I think are all fixable, right? So a lot of outside hand issues, which kind of hurts him and actually counter moves to his punches on pass sets. That he loses a lot that helps the speed rushers get by him. So I think that's fixable. And the second is the penalties. That's real. I think in the past 2 years, he's got 22 penalties against him, holding and false starts. But a lot of those are anticipation things, him trying to get a jump on things. That's all fixable. I think he is a really, really good tackle prospect. I have him as the 3rd ranked tackle on my board right now. And yeah, so that's one of the guys. One more guy, and you can move on to the next question. It's just a name to remember for everyone, and that's Christian Haynes. He's a guard out of UConn, smaller school. Well, I mean, not small school, Division I school, but not a school that you're going to see on ESPN all the time. Just dominant in every facet of the game. Again, 6'6", 6'4", 320 pounds of just solid specimen of man, good,
Okay.
Good hands, good feet, pass block, run block, a guy who's going to be a guard for a long, long time.
All right, let's go to this. It's a natural transition junior here. Reaction to Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft. He had the Jets getting the 2nd best offensive lineman on the board, not named Joe Alt, so that ended up being Fuaga. Also, he has Fashanu falling to the pick number 13. He included DJ's caption, but it couldn't make it with the character limits on here. So I'll just read you what he had for Fashanu because it's interesting. And this is, again, the caption of Daniel Jeremiah's mock with Fashanu. Quote, teams are split on Fashanu. After a dominant 2022 season, he took a step back in 2023, but the talent is still immense, end quote. Like I said, he had Fashanu falling to pick 13. And at the beginning of his mock, he lets people know that when he puts a mock together, it's based on things he's hearing around the league and sharing it. When he does a top 50, big board or top 100 big board, he said that's his opinions. When it's a mock, it's not his opinions. He's sharing what he's heard from people. So I find that even more fascinating when you hear that quote.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. That the thing with Jeremiah is his mocks are, they hold some depth and weight. So I'm going to say this, and I understand, and I agree with the sentiment about Fashanu. And I can understand how people could be split. Listen, I still have him as my second ranked offensive tackle, and I think it's because the traits, he just turned 21 years old. The traits are immense, right? And those are real things. He's already, a very nuanced pass blocker. I think he needs to get a little bit more aggressive. He's not not even probably he wouldn't be league average right now as a run blocker in the NFL. He's got some nuances. He's got some technique stuff that he would need to fix in his pass blocking. It helps. He was able to succeed and borderline dominate a lot of college defensive ends with limited usage of technique and counters and stuff like that, so he would need to develop a little more. My take on Fashanu, and here it is. I think he's a very, very good prospect. Would I take him at 10? Yes, I would take him at 10, but I think him being ballyhooed as like the can't miss prospect in this offensive line class, I think that has to be tempered. I think he comes in similar to a similar profile to Andrew Thomas from the Giants, right? He struggled year
overall.
One. He was fourth overall. He struggled year one, but he had all of, the tools. He was young. He was young. He had all the tools. He checked all the boxes, physically and athletically. That's exactly what Olu Fashanu. I could see a transition like that. The difference between Andrew Thomas is that he was a dominant run blocker, kind of needed some work on the pass. It's the flip. It's the opposite. I think Olu Fashanu needs to get a lot stronger. That he's going to need some time in the weight room to really get that functional strength up before he's so. The fact that people are split on him, I see it.
Okay. These last three, I just want rapid fire. This is another thing people can do. Like I said, the forum is available for you guys to drop questions. They can either drop questions or Jets draft scenarios or whatnot. And another thing a lot of people are doing are just dropping a prospect and they just want your first thought on him, or like the first thing that comes to mind. So here are a couple that come in. Johnny Jimenez here on our YouTube page, the wide receiver from Western Kentucky, Malachi Corley.
Malachi Corley, a guy that we're going to see firsthand. Olbrich will have him on the national team. Rapid fire, he's a converted running back. Think Deebo Samuel. I know that's going to be a big comp for him. Somebody who can do a lot with the ball in his hand. They call him, his nickname in college is the Yak King. So I think that says enough.
Phenomenal.
A little bit shorter, strong build. Again, he's a former running back. He's only been playing wide receiver for a year and a half. Think Deebo Samuel. Think Antonio Gibson from.
That's the other one I was going to bring up.
Think Antonio Gibson. With a little bit more nuanced in running. The Senior Bowl is going to be big for him, Johnny Jimenez, because he was only asked at Western Kentucky to catch bubble screens and little one-step hitches, and then just get yards after the catch afterwards. So we're going to see what he can do in press coverage if he can get off it, so on and so forth.
All right, I have another one in here. It's a bit more generic, so I guess I'll have to rely on you. Greg Bubb, 5156, Penn State O-lineman. Is there anyone beyond Fashanu, or is Fashanu the only guy?
No, there's another tackle, but my guess is that he's talking about Olu Fashanu.
Then you just
they have another tackle that's draft eligible. For the life of me, I don't remember his name. I'm trying to see.
That's not a good sign.
Yeah, listen, I have a database that I keep of all the tape I watch, and I didn't see him here. So Yeah.
That's all right. Sorry, Greg, but that's okay. We just gave you some.
I'm
Fashanu
assuming
love.
it's Fashanu, and I
Yeah.
kind of broke that down.
Yeah. And let's go to the final one here. This is from Loco Man 888, Arizona 3-year starting left tackle Jordan Morgan, 6'5", 325. Give us your initial thoughts on him, and that'll wrap up the show.
Jordan Morgan, he is, I think he doesn't have a first round grade from me, but he's a guy that will go in the first round. He's right on the cusp. Listen, there's a possibility, Paul, that there's going to be 7, 8, maybe 9 tackle. Nah, maybe not 9, but it's 7 or 8 tackles taken in the first round. It could go that way, and he's right there in the mix. He's going to go somewhere between pick 20 and pick 32 for sure. All right. Here's the catch with Jordan Morgan. Okay. I love Jordan Morgan. I thought he had a phenomenal collegiate career, coming off of an ACL tear. Came back this year, so it's year 1 after an ACL tear. So he was still a little bit, kind of the question with him is, can he stay at left tackle? People the people are going to be split on whether he's more of a tackle at the next level or more of a guard. He definitely didn't move as well, didn't have the lateral movement and loss of step. Again, coming back 1 year off of a torn ACL. But he's a guy who I think top to bottom is one of the more polished offensive linemen in this class. Again, he just seems to have lost a little bit of juice after that ACL injury. I think he's still going to go in the first round. The question is, do you put him, is he again, not comparing the guys, but think Tyler Smith, who came out of Tulsa a couple years ago, Dallas.
Cowboy.
Yeah. He was one of my favorite offensive tackles in that class, and he has settled. He found his home at left guard. I think Jordan Morgan can kind of take that path and could be that kind of player. Again, they're different players. I'm not comparing them, not a pro comp, but that avenue. He was a dominant, Smith was a dominant tackle at Tulsa. Jordan Morgan was a dominant tackle at Arizona. Has really found his home and his niche inside. Again, another Senior Bowl guy, another guy that we'll get to see close up and personal.
All right, beautiful. Thanks for all the questions, everybody. And you guys can submit questions for the end of shows each week. Again, the new one is already up on our forum page. Dom C, you're the best in the business. The link is down below for people to subscribe. So thank you for joining us for another episode. I think people are really digging these.
Listen, I anytime I get a chance to nerd out and talk draft with anybody that'll listen, I dig it. So.
Hey, you know what? You are a draft pastor. We're going to church on Mondays and getting the sermon of all things draft. And again, unlike church, I guess I'm taking notes. I'm like, oh okay. Whatever you say, pastor. All right. 3rd round. Okay, great. So we're getting that kind of juice, that chutzpah, which we appreciate. Again, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, whether you're watching live or after the fact. We're live every Monday morning with Dom C at 7:30, getting you ready for the 2024 NFL Draft. Senior Bowl right around the corner. Again, we'll be doing some live stuff with Dom C down there in Mobile, Alabama. Should be a lot of fun. Dom, thanks, brother. We appreciate you.
And I appreciate you. Thank you, everyone. My friend, Paul. Appreciate you.
There we go. We'll see you next time, everybody. Take care.